Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Extended Cut. As you can see, I'm back with PD today. We got an awesome episode for you guys. But before we get into that, today's episode is brought to you by the How to Church class. This is an amazing course that we've created. This isn't just learning how to church or be in a church, but this is amazing discipleship material, and just wherever you are in your life or your walk with Jesus, like, this is good stuff to hear. And this is stuff that you can actually access on our website. So,
It highlights what it means to walk with Jesus, the people of God, and be on God's mission together. And we really do believe that those are the keys to the vibrant Christian life. So you can check it out, hvdenver.org, grow, How to Church class. And then there's some bonus content on there as well.
There is some bonus content, talking about kids ministry, campus ministry, youth ministry, all the...
How we church at Hope Valley.
Exactly.
But How to Church will help you no matter where you are and no matter how long you've been walking with Jesus.
Yeah, awesome. So let's dive right in, boss. So, donkey parenting.
Donkey parenting.
On Mother's Day. Well played. First of all, well played.
I wanted to name it Donkey Moms, but I was like, that'll get me fired.
I'm glad you didn't name it Donkey Moms. This would be a very different podcast.
And that'd have been the end of my job.
I'm really, really happy you didn't.
Yeah, that would have been problematic in so many different ways.
That's a really funny name, though. Talk to us about donkey parenting, boss. Where'd you come from? What was the big idea? What did you want people to hear today?
Yeah, so it really comes out of the relational nature of our lives, right? And so Pastor Andrew talked about that last week, but Kish, Saul's father, is the one who set Saul's donkey mission off. Like, he was the main catalyst for it, sending his son to go find the donkey. We see that in the verse, and we're kind of putting some stuff on the verse that's not really in there, but we know is true from our lives. But his father sent him on the mission, but he couldn't do the mission for his son because there are things that need to be developed inside of a man or woman that can only be developed as they go out and do it on their own. So Kish set up the scenario for Saul to succeed by saying, take somebody with you. And he had created the kind of life so that there were people around. There were good people around that Saul could go with. And then you see that even when Saul was failing and taking longer than it should have taken for this task to be completed, his father didn't go out and find him and rescue him and find the donkeys and take care of everything. He allowed Saul to follow through, and ultimately it ended up with an encounter with God. And so the real big idea is that so much parenting is like that. Being a parent is, I think sometimes there can be an expectation in today's society that parenting means that we're going to do things for our kids, and we think that setting our kids up for success means doing things for them or getting them that aid now or removing discomfort or pain from their lives now, instead of allowing difficulty to be a part of their upbringing so that they're ready to adult and kind of leave the nest and thrive and fulfill the purpose that God's created them for.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And I mean, you talked about even parenting being a donkey mission in itself and sending our kids on donkey missions. In fact, like when you were saying it, I actually thought about my dad. I grew up in a martial arts school. I was basically the karate version of a PK.
Right. Exactly.
And I remember something that my dad did, and then my brother did it at his school as well too. They always had me teach the 4 to 6 year old class.
Okay.
Now you imagine a bunch of 4 to 6 year olds just in general and trying to wrangle that group, but now try teaching them martial arts. And they had me doing this at 10, 12,
so a 10-year-old teaching 4-year-olds.
Exactly. And I had to think, and I actually got to call my dad and ask him, I was like, did you know what you were doing there? Or was that just like, what was it?
It was a desperation, or were you developing something in me?
Because it definitely developed something in me that, I use to this day. So talk about that, just the donkey mission of sending kids on donkey missions.
So our kids' donkey missions in a way are a parent's own donkey mission, right? As we see our child struggling to thrive or struggling to succeed or learning the ropes, figuring it out. So as a 10-year-old teaching 4-year-olds, I'm sure there are things that you weren't doing great that your dad saw and was like, oh man, like he had to go through some kind of journey on his own to both be okay with you not doing it perfectly, but also using that moment to develop you. And all of the wrestling involved in that development has its own kind of pressure on the parent. I think about If you've got a kid doing a hard project at school, that's their donkey mission. And we're there to cheer them on. We're there to support them. We're there to encourage them. But I'm not there to do it for them because their character needs to be developed. Their thought processes need to grow, and they need to feel the success of a project well done and the disappointment of a project that doesn't go very well. Yeah. And as much as we want to remove the discomfort from that, as much as it's terrible to see your kid hurt or struggle or feel lost in a project, that's my donkey mission as a parent. That's the difficulty that I experience as my child is experiencing difficulty, but it's for everybody's good in the end.
Yeah. No.
Was that what you were talking about?
Yeah. No. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, and it's. Yeah, I really kind of want to just call my dad and ask him. I was like,
Well, how hard was it for you to watch me learn how to do these things?
Yeah.
Right?
And that's something I just imagine that parents obviously deal with often. You talked about another thing as well too, and it was great. This Greek word that you brought up. You talked about the Greek word sucks. You talked about the Greek word sucks, and you were talking about how Saul was going through this place of double blessing, this place of double portion, but he couldn't find these dang donkeys.
He was failing.
And it was just super frustrating. But you also gave different examples of how people can experience that in life. Like it was Mother's Day, people that don't have their moms with them. People that are trying to have children and they see all of their friends getting pregnant and having babies. You know, people getting promoted and, they can't catch a break and get a promotion. And you said that in those seasons and in those types of donkey missions, God's building up something on the inside for later.
Yes.
But it still sucks.
Right today it's awful.
Right now it still sucks. Yeah. So how would you encourage people to not just deal with the suck or get through the suck, but to really experience the grace and power and really nurturing nature of God in them?
Yeah. So I'll answer that, but I'll hasten to say that it doesn't always not suck later.
Yeah.
Right? Like some things are awful in this life. Some things are absolutely miserable in our entire life. We'll never understand the benefit of it. Our greatest hope, or our greatest confidence as believers is that we don't mourn as those with no hope, Paul says, right? But we have certainty in God's definite future where every tear will be wiped away, right? Where we'll feel the fullness of his loving embrace without the hindrances that come from living in a fallen world, right? So there's hope beyond this life, and the Christian has confidence in that future life with our loving Father, our loving Creator. And so I think sometimes we make the goal to understand the moment, and I think maybe a greater goal would be to find God in the midst of the moment. Yeah. And even finding God in the midst of the moment doesn't mean completely eliminating or eradicating difficulty or pain, but experiencing a melody of grace that plays in the background. I remember John Piper wrote a book. It's a little tiny book. I guess he had, prostate cancer, and the night before he went into his procedure, he did what men like him do, and he wrote a book. What he said? What? No, he wrote a book the night before he went in for his procedure.
Who does that?
I know. People like him, and so those people.
I feel like I'm failing at life now. My gosh, I got to step my game up.
But it was "Don't Waste Your Cancer." And I remember the title, and I remember the essence of it was like, hey, this is awful, this is painful, and it highlights much of what is wrong with the human experience and in the world that we live in. But he's like, but if we find the goodness of God, even in the midst of our struggle, it's not wasted.
Yeah.
If we allow the goodness of God to shine brighter than our pain, or to act as a compass in the midst of our pain, we haven't wasted our difficulty, our cancer, our pain, our struggle, our loss, our disappointment, our sorrow, right? And so it might not ever be better. So the goal isn't to not experience the pain, but it's to find God in the midst of the pain. And so I'm going to get right to the broken record.
Oh, yeah, no.
Here we are. How do we meet God? How does that happen?
Yeah.
I would say, I've got actually one extra idea. I think is we've got to take the fig leaves off and acknowledge the moment for what it is.
Yeah.
Like in the midst of a painful moment, we don't have to cover it up and pretend.
Say, oh, yeah, no, we're fine.
Yeah, everything's okay. So take the fig leaves off.
Yeah.
And it's amazing what is a fig leaf. And sometimes you don't even know it is a fig leaf until something's removed. And you're like, oh man, I was hiding behind that.
Yeah.
And now that it's removed, it can be a good thing. Like we can hide behind, it's ironic. It's a terrible irony.
Yeah.
But in our spiritual disciplines, we can hide from God because I'm reading my Bible every day and I'm praying and I'm worshiping, and like we can do it very religiously and use that as a means of hiding from God and never being transparent with Him, never being authentic in His presence, and never allowing ourselves to be spiritually vulnerable or naked in the presence of God, like to say, this is my pain and this is my sorrow and this is my disappointment.
It's almost like doing it for the good job instead of doing it for the relationship.
Exactly.
And I mean, what you're describing in this broken record, actually, we had Youth Breakout this Sunday. I shared with the youth that getting with God is what helped me.
Yes.
Because I was in a season of suck and experienced it, and it was Mother's Day, and I recently lost my mom.
Yeah.
And I remember specifically the day that I didn't necessarily get past the suck, because it still sucks, but I experienced the nakedness and the comfort of God for myself. And it was the broken record that got me there. It was getting with people.
That's the broken get with the get with God and get with the people of God. And,
exactly. And it was encouragement in those moments by the people of God that really allowed me to be vulnerable in my own quiet time. To take off the fig leaves and to acknowledge that, oh, okay, this is hurt. This is pain. I'm not okay. But you're still God and you're here. And I was able to what I realized was, we talked about this on another podcast a while ago, but it wasn't a period, it was an ellipse. It's like, okay, cool, this isn't the end.
He wasn't done yet.
He's not done yet. He's still doing so much stuff, and he is building something up inside of me. And it was wild when my mom passed. It was 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, I had a friend, their grandmother passed away. And I was able to comfort them in a way that I don't think I would have been able to do if I didn't really understand what that loss and that experience was, and really point them to Jesus the way others did for myself.
That's really good. That's really good. I can only affirm what you're talking about, right? And in those times that, we say get with Jesus and get with His people, and the times that getting with Jesus feels impossible, good people can help point you in that direction. They can get you to that. They can get you to that place, right? They can get you into the presence of God and remind you of His goodness and His faithfulness, and support and encourage you in your doubt or unbelief or difficulty or struggle or bad attitude, right? Especially in Denver, there's kind of still a pioneering kind of attitude, a go it by yourself and go it alone kind of disposition towards things. And it's different. Like, when we lived in Northern Virginia, people wanted their own success, right? This is a little bit different here. Instead of wanting our own success and trying to go it alone and using other people for our success, there's a little bit of we want to insulate ourselves from other people and take care of ourselves and kind of experience our best life by ourselves. But our best life will never be realized by ourselves because we've been designed for community. We've been designed for God, and we've been designed for one another.
And I love what you're saying, because even I've seen the allure of loneliness and the promises that it offers.
It's so nice.
But it really never fulfills. It's just
like the idea of it's nice. You're like, oh, okay, never being exposed, not having your thoughts confronted, not having, it's like whatever you want, you want, and
Yeah.
there's no challenge to that. It's appealing, but it's
a liar.
but it is a liar. That's
Such
so
a
good.
liar.
It's so good.
So, I love that we're talking about being with people, because you made another analogy that I absolutely loved, and it of course resonated with my
the
soul.
cut man.
The cut man. And you were talking about a situation you had where you were describing the cut man, and it's not the trainer, it's somebody that's there to encourage you, but their job is to make sure that your face is okay so that you can keep fighting.
Just to keep you in the fight.
Just keeping you in the fight. And if you want to know what a cut man's like, watch the movie Rocky.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a scene where Rocky's eye is so swollen that he can't see.
Yeah.
And the cut man literally has to cut his eye open to get the swelling down to send him back into the fight. Talk to us about the cut man.
Honestly, I don't even know how I got there in the sermon.
It was great.
Like a lot of Sunday sermon was extemporaneous.
Yeah,
right? Like I had notes. I knew what I wanted to say, and I just felt overridden.
Yeah.
Right. But man, we need those cut. There's another sermon I love to preach about. When they cut when the four friends or the four men they carry the man on the mat and they cut the hole in the ceiling. Yeah. Yep. And it's like we need a community, and in that community we need that person. We in the community we need somebody who's going to comfort us.
Yeah.
We need somebody who's going to be kind of prophetic and philosophical and out there, like just out there, like philosophical, like thinking like big grand thoughts, but we need somebody who's going to shove us back in the ring.
Yeah. Even when it's hard.
Even when it's hard.
It's just like, I know you're getting beat up right now.
Yeah.
Get back in there. You can do this.
Yeah.
Come on.
Like you're not dead yet.
Yeah.
Like I've got this one mentor of mine. He used this phrase with me again recently, but he was describing his father told him. Now, my mentor, he's 60s or maybe 70s, and his father told him growing up, there are no cannibals in the United States. So, what do you have to be afraid of? Like, nobody's going to eat you.
Yeah.
Right? And he goes, it was the weirdest thing to be told growing up. He's like, but it's kind of like, at the end of the day, nobody's going to eat you.
Yeah.
Like what's the word? Like, what could somebody really do to you?
Yeah.
And it was like the absolute weirdest way to say it, but I actually really, we were laughing about that.
It is a little weird.
but he's like, so like to you, I say, like nobody's going to eat you. Like, step out in faith. Live like nobody can destroy you. Live like nobody's going to, I guess that symbolizes maybe the ultimate humiliation.
Yeah.
Not just to be murdered by somebody, but then to be consumed by them.
Yeah.
Right. But nobody's going to consume you. And to have the kind of person that's like, hey, look, I know things are tough. I know things are bad, but I know you're hurting. I know this is difficult, but don't quit.
Yeah.
Like, I know it seems lost, but get back in there.
Yeah.
All right. Like, and to have the confidence that, they'll only send you back into a fight that they believe that you can win.
Yeah.
Right.
And if they need to throw in the towel on your behalf,
they'll do that.
they can do that. But
They'll do that.
they're gonna send or usher you out of something. Like you were talking about.
Yeah.
That job that you had before, they told you to stay in it, and then when it was time to go, they were like, "Oh, okay, now it's time to go."
Get out. Like, you need to get back in there. You're beat up. So Larry's describing a job that I had, and my mentors were like, "You need to stay in this." I was having heart palpitations. I wasn't sleeping at night. My pillow was wet with sweat.
You didn't say that last time.
Oh God, it was the worst. My life. I thought I was going to die, and they're like, "No, you got to stay in it." And then, almost 6 months later, it was like, okay, now it's time.
Yeah.
Now it's time to throw in the towel, because now you're actually going to die.
Yeah, it's like you're
like,
actually
now it's actually bad. But like in that process, character was developed and pride was revealed, and so lessons were learned and things were experienced that were necessary for my development as a man, and they knew that, and that's why they kept me in it.
Yeah.
But then at the right time, they were like, it's time to throw in the towel. I think that our generation is so averse to pain. Because we're so used to the Hallmark resolution happening so quickly, and we're so used to, when I was growing up, it was Family matters, right?
Yeah,
Like
yep,
they have conflict and it resolves right away. Or
23 minutes.
they pulled it off in 23 minutes.
Yeah.
And a 30-minute sitcom with 7 minutes commercials,
Exactly,
right? And Full House, right? And so like everything resolves so quickly. How much more do we expect fast resolution now in this generation as movies and everything else have showed us that they're supposed to.
Yeah.
But I think we quit on things far too easy, and I think that the cut man is the unsung hero of our lives who tell us to stay in it, right? I wonder how many marriages would have made it had there been a cut man instead of a quit man, right? Like I wonder how many fathers would still be in their sons and their daughters' lives if they had a cut man who told them to stay in it and endure the difficulty and the complication and the confusion and the embarrassment and the kind of the feeling of being exposed instead of a quit man.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
Like how many things would be created now that don't exist yet because people had a quit man instead of a cut man.
And threw him back in it.
Yeah.
That's really good.
So yeah, we need that cut. We need a cut man. So in the friends that you have, find a cut man.
Yeah.
And or maybe you've got best case scenario, you got a bunch of them.
Yeah.
That are gonna not let you quit.
Yeah.
When you want to throw in the towel.
Yeah.
They'll snatch that towel out of your hands.
I love it.
Throw you back in the ring.
I absolutely love it. Now I have two more, in regards to that, I have two more questions. Do you want them at the same time or do you want them one at a time?
Let's do one at a time because I always turn your questions into multiple questions anyway.
It's great. So you actually touched on it in your friends finding a cut man. The first one is, how do we identify a cut man? Because if I look at a cut man with the analogy that you're giving, that's someone who's had training and knows what they're doing. It's not just...
Yeah, they're not guessing.
It's not just my homie that's just like, oh man, your head's swollen. I think I need to cut your eye. It's just like, no. You watched Rocky, didn't you? Stop it. What is wrong with you? No. Don't, it's not my eye, it's this. Stop.
Yeah.
So it's not just, and they have a specific set of tools and they know how to administrate them and use them. So how would we identify our spiritual cut men?
That's really good.
That are going to throw us back in the fight, but also know what they're doing and not just going to be like, I'm going to cut your eye when your nose is bleeding.
Yeah, I think unless you've got a different idea, I think they're just discovered as we live life together. Mm-hmm. Right? Like I think it's discovered. Well, I think it requires people knowing about your difficulty, and you're not like it's not like testing them out. Like you don't want to go out and test all your relationships.
Yeah.
But as we live authentically with one another, those people
kind of rise
to the top as being that kind of friend.
Yeah.
And we need that. I think that's how those people are discovered. Mm-hmm. Every once in a while, there are people in my life who I saw being a friend to somebody else, and I was like, I need that kind of friend in my life. And so I pursued friendship with people because I saw the kind of person that they are.
Yeah.
And it was like, I need that character in my life. I need that kind of pastor in my life. I need that kind of mentor. I need this kind of businessman in my life.
Yeah.
I've seen them help them, so I want them in my life.
Yeah.
Right. At the risk of getting ahead and maybe answering the next question, I think that as we can learn to be cut men, we'll learn to recognize cut men.
Yeah, that's right.
And like this, like as we. One more thing about the cut man, they've got this, like you were saying, training, but they've got discernment, right? Yeah. And we alluded to that in my own illustration and story, but like they've got discernment to know, oh no, this is a time to press in, or this is a time to draw back.
Yeah.
And I think it's, so you're not just looking for somebody who dumbly throws you back in the ring.
Yes.
Right? Like, I think we've already said that. I just feel like we got to say that again.
Watch Rocky IV,
right?
you'll see how that goes badly.
Yeah. So it's like you don't need somebody who's not going to regard the circumstances, who doesn't regard your soul, who doesn't regard the fight. You need somebody who actually, with understanding it. So, I mean, I think the best cutman, and I don't know if this works metaphorically. I don't know if this is true in boxing, but man, I love love having some people who've been through some stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Like I need those older men and women in my life.
Yeah, that's real.
Pastor Danelle Perkins in Myrtle Beach, man, she helped me so much.
Yeah.
She was such a great cut man.
Yeah.
For me. I mean, I remember taking an offense to her one time, and I was like, hey, like, this is what's happening. I felt beat up, by a boss, and I was like, I don't know how to process this. And she said, if it's sin, repent, right? And I was like, okay. Yes, ma'am.
I can picture her saying
ma'am,
this.
may I have another?
Right.
And then she said, and if it's preference, change. And I was like, and then she was like, now get your butt back in there.
I love it.
Like, go. Like, go. Like, if it's sin, repent. If it's preference, change your preference.
I love it.
Because you work for that person, and that's what they are wanting. So get over yourself, surrender your pride, which would become sin. So get your butt back in there. And I remember being like, oh, okay. Like, she was like,
knowing her, I can picture this whole situation because I've had moments like that with her as well.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, and it was almost like, you know what happened? It's almost like I went in and I wanted her to be like, oh, you're cut.
Yeah.
Aw.
It's
like I was like, I'm hurt. And she was like,
wrong auntie, man.
Yeah, that was not what she brought that day. Get your butt back in there.
I love it. That's like, man, I love it that you said that's what you went to her wanting, because as we were talking about it, I just thought of situations in our lives where we know who we can go to for what.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody recently, and as I was talking to them, I realized, I was like, oh, you're trying to get out of something that God's like saying you should do, and you're trying to justify it in a conversation with me right now. And that's something that we all do. It's not.
Oh, yeah.
But I think also being real with ourselves and knowing what we're doing and taking that to Jesus, which is a very, very hard part.
Absolutely.
But yeah, because choosing the right person to get the result you're really looking for, that you actually need, not just living out what you keep wanting to do.
Right.
So
exactly.
That's a big one. You did touch on the second question, and it is us becoming the cut man.
Yeah.
How do you become the cut man? How do we gain it? Or is it just, because I know you talked about those older people, is it just experience? Is it just wisdom? Is it developing discernment through our own personal walk with God and really allowing that to take the lead in our encouragement with friends, in our, if we have sin, repent, and if we have preference, change type thing? Or is there something else you're wanting to add to that?
Yeah, I think so. I'm in a moment right now in my own life where I'm remembering the importance of just really being a man after the Spirit of God.
Yeah.
Right? Like sometimes we can over prioritize. Hey, come on in. You wave. You want to wave? Say hello.
Say hi.
They're perfect. So I'm remembering to be a man after the Spirit of God. And I think sometimes we can prioritize the Word of God so much that it becomes an intellectual, mental thinking faith instead of a spiritual faith and a Spirit empowered faith. And so to become a cut man, there is no substitute in all of the world for being a spiritual person, for sitting in the presence of God and allowing Him to shape and form your opinions, your perspectives, your insights, and to hone and develop your discernment, so that when somebody brings you something, so that when you see somebody going through something, your understanding isn't just limited to your experience, and your understanding isn't just limited to what you see occurring on the surface. Because on the surface, not everything that looks good is.
It's true.
And not everything that looks bad is bad.
Yeah.
Right? And so we really do need the Spirit of God to inform our faith and our understanding so that we can give proper guidance.
That's really good.
Right.
That's really good. And I love how you acknowledge that when things look good on the outside, they're not necessarily good on the inside.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's something you actually spoke about in the message as well too. We're getting back into Luke. Let's go. We're doing it.
Bridge it together. Back into the book of Luke.
We're back. We're back in the book of Luke. There's this moment where Jesus is invited to a Pharisee's home, and he's sitting here, and he's just like, I can't believe you didn't perform the hand washing ritual that needs to be performed at a meal. How dare you?
Yeah.
And then this is just my own headcanon. Jesus looks at him and almost like the Willy Wonka meme, and he's like, oh, tell me more. Because
tell me more about how dirty I am.
Exactly. Please tell me more, because as clean as you are on the outside, you are filthy on the inside.
Yeah.
And he uses this example of, we focus on washing. He's a savage. Listen, Jesus is a savage, and I don't know why more people don't talk about this. This man there were folks he was coming after. He's just
the lawyer's like, hey, that hurt our feelings.
And he's like,
he goes, yeah, it was supposed to.
It's like, that's what I was trying to do. Congratulations, you figured it out. But he talks about being clean on the inside versus this exterior appearance. And not even just in church, but just in life, 2023, Instagram, TikTok, even with our own social media, it's just like, okay, how can we get more views? How can we do this? And it's like all of this external stuff that we strive for in society today.
Yeah.
But that's not all the real stuff. Like Instagram, it's literally the highlight reel of people's lives.
Yeah.
It's not they fumbled here.
And even in recent time, it used to be just the highlight reel of people's lives. Now it's the performed highlight of people's lives.
The rehearsed.
I can almost not stand reels. It used to be that you had things that were produced, and then things that were best of.
Yeah.
And now you've got produced pretending to be best of.
Yeah.
And it's like, so you can't, it's not even, right? So it's like, man, everybody's acting like this is the best part of their life. And, I think if you were to really kind of x-ray those videos, you'd realize, this is all performance.
Yes. 1,000%.
All performance.
1,000%. This isn't though. This is unscripted. This is.
This is chaos.
Oh gosh! All right.
I wish I could perform.
Listen, that makes two of us, man. It would make life so much easier.
Yeah, it really would.
Seriously. But performing, and I mean, in youth we talked about pretending and performing, becoming what we base our life off of versus this authenticity. And I think the authenticity before God is what helps develop the cleanliness on the inside.
Yeah.
So how would you encourage someone if they've realized that they have been living an outwardly expressed life, that's the only thing that matters, and that's what they're defined by, that's what they are known by, and they can put on this performance, but on the inside they're understanding that there's something not right, there's something wrong, there's gunk on the inside that they haven't gotten to. They've polished the outside great. How would you encourage them to get to the gunk on the inside?
How do we get to the gunk? I know how to respond to the gunk on the inside. I think how to get there. I think it leaks. I think the gunk leaks, and we like to pretend that it doesn't, because we say, well, that's not who I am. So when the gunk leaks, it's eruptions of anger or gossip or malice. We try and promote ourselves, or we try and hide in our work or in our pursuit of promotion or pleasure, right? So, but in the midst of all of those things are the dirt on the inside. It leaks out, and you'll even hear people on trial for murder or for really awful things, and they'll say, it's not who I am, right? It's like, yeah, but it was in you.
Yeah.
So you can't deny that it was in you. You can't deny that it was expressed by you as something that came authentically from you. You regret it, yes. But we can I think we spend a lot of time pretending that the eruption of anger is like somebody else's fault,
Yeah.
instead of taking radical responsibility for it, radical acceptance of the fact that we've got issues. So I don't think we have to even seek it out. I think we just need to acknowledge that, oh, that's what that is.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it does. And and even as you're saying that, realizing that phrase, that's not who I am, realizing that the inside is actually who we are. Like that's who we are.
Yeah.
And it's not just this outward performance. So,
Yeah. So I'll be even more visceral than that. Like if we find ourselves,
Go for it.
if somebody finds themselves shopping with money that they don't have, lack is leaking. Right? If we find ourselves looking at pornography, lack is leaking.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like, because we justify it to ourselves, we're like, oh, I'm not a bad person. I just need some comfort.
Yeah.
I'm not a bad person. I just need some relief.
Yeah.
I'm not a bad person. and it's like, no. It's like sin isn't about being a bad person. It's about something being out of sync with the heart of God.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's that like there's a gap between the life that God wants us to have and the life that we're living. And it doesn't like if it's being a bad person, we're all bad people, right?
Yeah.
But it's different than that. There's for every single one of us, there's a gap between the life that God wants for us and the life that we're living. And in the pursuit of our life is like the blood of Jesus covers the gap, and then through a life of devotion and growth and a fancy word, sanctification, being cleaned up on the inside. So the gap is covered, but now as we draw close to Jesus, like the gap closes and we get closer and closer to the heart of God and closer to the purposes of God. So I think just radical acceptance and recognition of what the dirty is, and calling it what it is and not making an excuse for it anymore.
Oh.
Right? Yeah. So like if we're lying to ourselves or to other people to make ourselves look good, if we find ourselves exaggerating our goodness, you're leaking. If we're hiding in pornography or sexual sin and temptation of any kind, we're leaking. If we find ourselves dragging others down so that we can feel bigger or better than we think that we are, or like we're leaking, right? Does that?
Yeah, no, that
makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
So I think that's how we discover it. I think it's just it's there.
Mm-hmm.
We just need to call it what it is instead of making an excuse for it and acting like it's not.
Mm-hmm. And then almost like what we were talking about earlier. Now we get naked before God and we have vulnerability before Him, and it's just like, okay.
Yeah, and then
can we talk, Dad?
Yeah, Dad. Like I realized that I'm a mess in this way, and then that's where having great people in your life comes back into play again. Like telling other people, like I've discovered this longing. Yeah, so I'm trying to eat less food right now. Yeah. It's something I'm doing. But I texted my buddy last night. I was like, in eating less food, I want to be angry. like food was sedating my anger, right? Like it was sedating me. It was like there's like that serotonin, that dopamine. It was like I was just feeding the beast.
That's so great.
It was like I was like just by eating. It was like I was comforting myself.
Were you just keeping yourself sleepy?
All the time. And so now it's like, man, I want to rage. I want to fight everyone and everything. So I just freaking need some nachos just to put the beast back to sleep. So I was like, pray for it, brother. So anyway, this isn't theory. This is like
that's great.
Yeah, so
I love it.
Yeah,
that's
so I'm
amazing.
eating too much. I was just keeping myself in a stupor.
I love it. That's amazing.
I was smart enough. I was cautious enough to not drink myself into a stupor.
Yes.
But I was using the more sanctified. I was using more holy, I was using melted cheese, just like
melted cheese is definitely better than alcohol.
Yeah, it's not going to destroy my liver, but it definitely was as much a fig leaf as anything was.
Yeah. So that's real. Giddy up, man. Well, that's all I got, man.
That was a good ending.
That was a good ending. That was a good thing to end on. Well, family, guys, thank you guys so much for joining us again. We're going to be meeting with you. We're going to see you guys again next week. It's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be PD and Pastor Megan next week. So it's going to be a super fun episode that
Yeah.
I look forward to watching and
Back
recording.
into the book of Luke. Well, you'll
Back
be
in-
there.
yeah,
I may make you sit in on it.
Well, fair enough.
So it's just, it'll be great.
Awesome. I love it. Well, we love you guys so much, and
Have
we'll
an
see you
amazing
guys soon. Bye.